Hello and welcome to GATSBY Fridays, a show about getting the best out of a creative life from two creative directors working around the world and based in New York City.
I'm your host, Alex Tremilio.
And I'm Sarah Semi.
Today, we will be talking about how to hustle you and your work.
We'll talk about knowing your audience, how to present your work, and best platforms to showcase your vision.
And at the end of each episode, we make a signature cocktail to toast cheers to you.
So hang with us as we discuss how to hustle you and your work. I'm your host, Sarah.
And I'm Alex.
And this is GATSBY Fridays. Alex, let's be real. Before we talk about selling yourself, because that's what we're doing, let's do a check-in. How are you and what are you wearing?
I am feeling good. I stopped wearing Hawaiian shirts just to differentiate what I'm wearing on the podcast, because it seems like I'm always wearing Hawaiian shirts. There is a torrential downpour. We may be having a hurricane, or we're in the middle of a hurricane. So I decided perhaps Hawaiian shirts were not appropriate. But I am wearing a vintage Sonic Youth t-shirt.
Well, tell me more about the t-shirt.
And Sonic Youth was one of my most favorite bands. I have, when people were collecting CDs, I had 12 CDs of Sonic Youth. And I know that that's probably not a reference that people have now because everything is streamed, but 12 CDs in their cases on your shelf take up a lot of space compared to all the other music that's there. I just love them. I'm wearing acid wash black jeans and dirty Vans. I feel like I look like a East Village hipster circa 1997. What I wanted to ask you, Sarah, I noticed that you don't have band t-shirts.
I don't wear t-shirts like that. I used to when I was younger. I don't have band t-shirts. But also I just don't wear t-shirts. The neckline.
The neckline. You don't wear this type of neckline.
I don't do all with it feels like it's suffocating me. So I don't really do. I like open chest. Easy breezy.
Yeah.
I can barely do turtlenecs.
So winters must be brutal because you
No, you put
just
on a
do
scarf.
a lot of scarves. You put on a lot of
You
scarves.
just put on a scarf instead. Like I just don't like that feeling.
Sarah, how are you and what are you wearing?
I'm good. I'm wearing my old trusty tank top, white tank top, torn denim. It's disgusting outside. So like,
it seems to be a theme every time we
I know. I
get
like
back on
this. But this is like.
We're doing this in the summer. We're doing this in the dog days of summer.
I mean, and then when it gets cold, it's gonna be like, oh my god, it's so cold outside. But this is like there's the mask, and then there's the humidity of the city, and then there's the hurricane and the wind and the rain coming at you from sideways, and the umbrellas.
We've gotten down here.
Like the entire experience. So like what I'm wearing is it's just clothes. I am not wearing I didn't give it that much thinking today because I just needed to get down here and be comfortable.
That's real.
Let's define the hustle. How would you describe hustling? When it comes to your career, how did you sell your first ideas?
So what I want to do is start in the beginning, when I was born.
Oh my god, this is gonna take forever.
No. I'm gonna start at school.
Now.
Oh boy, I don't even. Let's not even begin that conversation.
Okay.
I wanted to start with school because, and we were talking a little bit earlier. When you're in school, you all start at a equal base, and what I mean by that is no one knows what they're doing. You're all learning the same thing, and when you finally get out of school, you have a set of tools that you all have together. Now, how do you differentiate yourself between yourself and your fellow student when trying to hustle getting into your first job or your first career or whatever have you? For me, my first couple of jobs were actually internships. And oddly enough, my background and my official degrees are in fashion. But most of the people that I was interviewing with were interested more in my artwork, because when you're in school, just so people know, if you're not an art student, your first couple of years are and then you do your artwork foundation. They're your foundation years. So I did all my artwork, all my general artwork in my foundation years, and I really had a knack for doing my own personal visual art, and that's what kind of got me into the door. Once I started doing that, people started seeing how different I was versus the other person who basically graduated with the same degree that I did. And
I got my first internship with my art portfolio. Because
yes,
that's, I mean, I was a fine arts student, so that's all I had to show.
and I feel like that really pulls you into the personality of who you are, or who a prospective client or employer would want to draw out of you. That's what I would have wanted to draw out of someone who would be working for me. Yes, they know how to do the foundational work. Yes, they know how to do the technical work, but where does their personality fit into the picture? And that's something I would want to know when either hiring somebody, and that's what I think people have wanted to know with me.
I mean, from a hiring perspective, everybody goes through the same class. I
Yes.
want to see your talent, and the classes only show so much of it. I want to see what you do when you don't have the defined parameters of a project. So that when I review portfolios, that's what I like to see.
Were there any portfolios that stuck out in your mind when you were, or what type of work did you what type of work did you show that felt differentiated you from the others?
For me, I mean, throughout my career, my first portfolio was all fine arts because that's what I studied in undergrad.
Same.
And I earned my first job with that first internship. I landed with that portfolio. And then I built my portfolio through the first 4 years of working at the Browning agency you and I met. Work that I did there was mostly handmade books. I did very little graphic design work, but I took continuing education classes, and I had to put together a book to apply to grad school. The work that I showed there was trying to showcase that to go into grad school for a master's degree, you have to show that you already have the foundations of graphic design. You're not there to learn typography. You're there to learn methodology and critical thinking. So from that perspective, my portfolio needed to show those things. So that was defined by what the schools needed to see.
Yes.
After I finished the program, I was very heavily influenced by the academia of how you portray yourself. But I had 2 interviews when I started looking for jobs after grad school. I put together my portfolio, and the first one was at Edelman Digital, and it was a long interview. There's a lot of people in the room. I got to meet most of the team, and I thought, like, okay, this is great. Like, they keep bringing more people into the room. They must really like me. And at the end, I didn't get the job because they said my portfolio was too analog. And when I say analog, it means it goes back to my thesis in grad school was about branding and how you can find patterns of human behavior in online behavior, how people tag their photos, how people choose to present themselves, and how branding plays a role in this. The best work that I did was when I kind of lost my way and went back to graphic design and printmaking again in undergrad, and that kind of refocused my vision. And that pretty much defined. I have more of an expressive style. That defined that art, going back to print and paper and art, defined my thesis, but also that's why I didn't get that job because my work looked too tactile for them. And then I interviewed at Black Book Magazine, and I got the job exactly because of that.
Exactly. I feel you're right, and I feel that people look for the tactileness, and it's surprising because what I was thinking was, once again, we're doing a podcast on how to get the best out of a creative life, and it seemed like you started interjecting your passion project into
already,
your
without
into your
realizing.
professional work, and that turned it. It turned a switch not only in you, but in the visual look of your work.
Yeah.
And it got you to places that you wanted to be. Sometimes maybe even unbeknownst to you. We're having that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, the job that I actually ended up getting was a much better fit for me.
I feel the same. I feel like once I stopped showing my technical work, people started gravitating towards the artwork. And the artwork, when I say artwork, it was still within the same genre of fashion that I was already in, but it just showed more expressive sketching, more thought in fabrics and whimsy in design that just got me over the hump.
I like that you brought up technical, because when I review portfolios to hire on into my studio to build a team for specific projects, I have been overwhelmed by the new batch of students coming from schools like Flatiron School and General Assembly, and the UX portfolios. UX is not design. UX is user experience design, and when I specify, like, it doesn't have, it's the technical side of stuff, right?
Yes.
It's the wireframes, it's the user scenarios, it's maps. That's not what I was looking for. So that's a whole episode that we can talk about how, continuing education plays a role in your career, but
Plays a slightly distorted role in what people see and what you,
but I see a lot of that technical type of portfolio now because of these schools, people changing careers. Not everyone's an artist at heart. And that's something, like, when I look at portfolios, I want to see the talent, because I can teach you how to think in a certain way. I can teach you how to change a style, but I can't teach you the talent if you don't already have it.
the fundamentals don't change. When you learn a suite of programs, you learn
It's a
that simple
tool.
suite of programs, and that is that.
That's just a tool.
How you use it and what your self-expression is what pulls you over.
Self-expression. That's the.
Self-expression. What did I say?
No, I'm confirming.
Yeah, it's yeah, and I think that's what puts you over. I mean, that's what I want to look for when I'm hiring
Exactly.
someone.
Agreed.
Let's move on and talk about knowing your audience and reading the room. Sarah, different types of groups require different types of approaches. How did you tailor your message to suit these groups?
I mean, the simplest, the easiest reference I can have for this is cover letters. When I apply to opportunities, I hate to write that individual cover letter for every opportunity, especially if you're looking for a job and you're applying to whatever you can get your hands on. It's like, oh my God, saying the same thing over and over again. It's the same message. The work should speak for itself. The work never speaks for itself. You have to say why that particular opportunity is relevant for you. You have to talk to their specific needs. Or when I'm approaching clients, when I have decks, I have a base deck that I send out to clients for pitches, usually after a conversation, so I know what they're looking for. I never send it right off the bat, blindly. I have not been able to send a single pitch to two separate potential clients. I have to always go in and customize why this, my portfolio is what it is. The work that I've done is what it is. I need to say why this particular branding is relevant to your needs.
Yes.
So without that message, you don't make the connection. You don't make it past the next level.
Sarah, what I wanted to talk about and add on to what you were saying about cover letters is that we all hate cover letters.
I mean,
We all hate doing cover letters. I mean, how do you distill who you are, what you can offer, and what you represent in 2 paragraphs and send it out into the vast ether of the internet?
come off authentic, not
And come
sucking
off
up,
genuine.
not sucking up, not too humble, but not too salesy.
This is the hustle. This is truly the hustle. Like I don't write cover letters. And I know that's a little bit of a shocker, but I tend to just speak the way I speak now to people. And it's not a blase.
If you're applying for a position that requires a cover letter, it's a position you found online, and it's a great opportunity that you want to be considered for, you're going to write that letter.
You're going to have to write the cover letter, yes. But there are ways to still be genuine, I hope, in your cover letter. Because here's the thing.
It's a challenge.
They need to know that you can just get the work done. So there's a list of responsibilities or programs that you are just required to know for whatever the job is. But after all that is listed, who are you? And what do you represent? And more importantly, what can you offer? And I tend to fall on personality. And I try to make sure that that personality comes through in the cover letter or whatever little blurb I'm trying to write about myself. And that's always an ongoing work in progress. I think we
Absolutely.
all need to figure out how to always constantly sell ourselves. And also, it's strange because you need to sell yourself in a smaller and smaller and smaller window. What's your elevator pitch? What's your 5-minute pitch? What's your 2-minute pitch? What's your 30-second pitch? And it's getting smaller. But you
Um,
understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying, but that's not always the case. I mean, it's yes, you need to have an elevator pitch. When did you actually pitch yourself in an elevator?
Why do they call
That's just
elevator pitches?
that's just a over
It's a very
dramatized
madman, madman-esque.
advertising age kind of thing. We don't. You do need to make connections in person, and that's your in person representation. And though, again, your personality needs to come through. And I think the thing that you touched on, the most important part, is the personality. When I review portfolios for designers or interns that I'm hiring, they're usually entry level and the portfolio is limited, and they've all taken the same classes and they have satisfied the class requirements, so they have projects to full populate their portfolios. But at that level, there's not that much personality that shines through. That's when the personal artwork that supports that portfolio is really important, but also the cover letter. As much as I hate writing them, I do not consider applications in that cover letters because I don't have time to give you a chance to articulate yourself. If you did not take the time, I'm putting time aside to review your work and see if you're a good match for this. If you want the job, you take the time and you give it some thought and tell me why you're the better match for this job.
So when it comes to those cover letters, like what words or phrases stick in your mind that kind of pop out to kind of show a little bit of a personality?
It's never the I'm gonna I've done this and then I've done that and this is the perfect I'm the perfect match for this. Of course, you think they're a good match for this.
And you write from that perspective.
Yes, but tell me a story. Tell me why, what you did last summer, that you did this, you were working at a coffee shop and this opportunity that you just created for yourself, and it may not be something that you can include in your portfolio. It's not going to show up in your resume. This is your opportunity. Tell me who you are. Tell me a little story. Make sure that it's relevant to why you're telling it. And there's an opportunity for you to differentiate yourself from the other candidates. And as much as I hate writing them, once you step on this side of the table, I realize why they're a crucial tool.
Yes.
And it's important not to dismiss them.
Tell your story.
Well, there's also, audiences are different. Like I said, like a client and an employer are kind of interchangeable in a way. There's also when you were talking about the elevator pitch, man, the networking events, presentations that you give, different types of people that you're talking to.
Yep.
I mean, you have to know who your audience is. If you're going to speak at the Type Directors Club, your audience is already very design savvy. So don't give them the most basic conversation. Give them something a little more extra about an insider thing that they might find interesting.
But at the same time, you could also be in a situation where you have a client that is unaware of what your technical prowess is, and that's okay. But what needs to happen in those types of situations is really the overarching vision of what your presentation is going to display. One just has to be aware that every project is different, and you always have to tailor your message to suit the project that you're doing, tailor your message to suit the audience that you're in front of. And for me, I just remembered a time where I'm doing a presentation in Shanghai, and it's a bunch of guys, older men, who don't speak English, or English is limited. I do not speak Cantonese or Mandarin, and through an interpreter, I had to get my message across, which meant that the presentation that I had prepared was totally out of the window because I had to simplify the message and simplify my deck in the middle of the meeting to suit the client needs. And luckily that worked out.
Talk about lost in translation.
Luckily it worked out, and they understood the message. But man, talk about like really different audiences. not only the language barrier, the cultural barrier, but they understood what I was trying to do.
They understood because you paid attention that this audience needed a different approach.
Yes.
Right now, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about how do you sell yourself in a pandemic.
Hello, and welcome back to GATSBY Fridays. Sarah, let's talk about how to hustle now. With in-person meetings not happening or limited at best, how do we connect with potential clients or collaborators? What have we lost by not meeting face-to-face?
I didn't really lose anything. My practice is already remote. I have one client in the city that I haven't seen in over a year in person. And at this moment, I have one client in Boston and one client in San Francisco. Even without the pandemic, I wasn't going to go to those places to meet with them. And I mean, these were projects that I landed through personal connections, but we wouldn't have done in-person meetings even without the pandemic. I have had in the past clients from Atlanta to Amsterdam.
What I wanted to say is, so I typically go into an office prior to the pandemic. I go to an office every day, just as I'm sure you do as well. But since we've been working remotely, and I've been working mainly from home, there's just no way to be meeting people face to face because of what the world is facing right now, which is understandable, obviously. So we've had to adjust. I've had to adjust. There's a lot of meetings on Zoom. There's a lot of phone conversations. Luckily, we have these tools, so I'm able to show potential projects to people visually, which is always what we've always been doing. So I think what is missing, and I do miss meeting people and talking to people and facing them eye to eye, checking body language. I feel like we've lost how to read each other physically and how to test a mood, which I think is something valuable for landing a client, for getting your point across, for making sure someone understands your vision. We've lost a little bit. I do miss meeting people in person.
You miss it, but that's kind of an emotional connection to that.
Yes.
It's from a results perspective, what did you really lose?
Nothing. I mean, work is still going.
That's what I mean.
Right? Yeah, and that's cool, and that's fine. But I don't mind speaking from a place of emotion. I think when you meet someone, especially in a creative field, there needs to be a spark. There needs to be emotion. And that's just me speaking for myself.
No, I agree with emotional connection.
But you're right. I work is work, and people read your work and they yay or nay it, and you move on. I'm talking from an emotional perspective, with in-person physical meetings, and just understanding people where they are when you see them in a room.
From an emotional perspective, I miss the camaraderie of, connecting with people around me. But other than that, I mean, because of the way that the world is running now, everyone's having their, remote year and working from beaches and stuff. This is just, now we're just working from our couches. It's not that different. Ever since I started on my own, personal meetings have always been limited. It's just convenient to... It's time saving. I didn't really miss anything by not connecting to them in person, or I actually increased opportunities because I had these tools at my disposal. I've never been to Amsterdam, but I had a client in Amsterdam. That speaks for itself. From an emotional perspective, yes, I miss the friendships and the connections, but in terms of presenting my work and selling myself, I didn't really lose results.
Those things don't change. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Time for a break, and when we get back, we'll talk about resources.
Hello, and welcome back to GATSBY Fridays. Alex, let's talk about resources. What has helped you get your message out?
Well, we're gonna have a discussion about platforms. So, everyone's portfolio at this point, hopefully, is online. And what's great about that is that you can put up anything you want, and you can actually you can put your passion projects alongside your commercial work, and they can sit side by side, which is wonderful. I think being online and having your portfolio online is just what the reality of the world is, and it's been that way for years. Social media, another aspect of putting your work out there, is a little bit murky.
Well, it's more for passion projects, I think.
Yeah.
I don't want to see your portfolio on Instagram.
Yeah, I agree. I don't want to.
Take the time, organize your portfolio, present it in a website format or some sort of digital format that I can see. But social media should be in addition to your
It shouldn't be your main.
formatted portfolio, body of work.
So if let's say this then, so if social media is more of your front brain just thinking and processing and thinking and processing, the website or your site is more of the controlled thought and not as random.
I wouldn't call Instagram random, but it's bits and pieces. It doesn't get a body of work across. And I'm not looking at, like we said before, about the stories that I want to hear, your personality, your body of work should include a wholesome representation of who you are, what you're capable of, your skill set, and your talents. Skill sets and talents are not the same thing. So I want to be able to see that, and also presenting yourself in a thought out, formatted way also shows me that it's a different level of skills. Shows me that you can organize and put a methodology together on how you understand, and you can analyze your work. If you can't sell yourself, how are you supposed to sell work for my clients? How are you supposed to sell my projects?
What I wanted to ask you actually was, how do you feel about secondary sites hosting your work and hosting your portfolio? I think that if you have your own portfolio, oftentimes people also put work on host sites.
I had to.
We all have to.
What's your thoughts on it? It's a lot of work. It's a lot of redundant work. I don't mind the work itself. I just feel like it's redundant work, but you have to have a presence in these bigger collectives. Without those, I mean, Behance, it's global. It's full of crap at the same time, but every time that I update something, I get a reaction. I get a call from a headhunter. There are people out there, because that's how they will find you. A standalone website is only going to be found as much as they know who you are.
If your standalone website is, and the analogy I like to use is an island, the secondary host platforms are the satellite islands. And people are more inclined to...
Bridges.
And bridges to those satellite islands. And people are more inclined to go looking through the islands to see, oh, if this little piece is here, I wonder what the main island offers. And hopefully maybe that drives traffic to your site and drives clients to your bigger site to see more of your work. But I think we're in agreement that these secondary hosting sites that host portfolios are also very important. Also expands your network.
What do you mean by that?
Well, so if you have, like what we were talking about before, if you have your website and you host certain aspects of your website on secondary platforms, it just makes sure your audience larger. Like when we were talking about Behance, I'm thinking about
working, not working.
Working, not working. There's Float. If that still exists, I don't know if that does.
I think it does.
And there's tons of them out there. It is a lot of maintenance. You got to constantly update those as much as you update your main site. That's the hustle.
You got to keep doing it. It's not just one and done. You can't just put up the site and be done with it. We are part of my studio is part of WeWork, for not just renting your office space, but I mostly stayed in the WeWork network because of the global connection to people that it provides me. But just being a part of that network, it doesn't do anything on its own. So I post twice a week. It's the same thing. It's not ideal. The best way to do it would be to post something unique every week at least. but we've been posting the same thing, but it's out of sight, out of mind. You have to constantly put something on in front of people's eyes, so when they really need someone, they remember you. So that's how I get my message out. It's not that I've done the website. The website's done on its own. No one's going to come in and dig through the work also. But you have to individually come in and pull out your projects that you're most proud of and put it in front of people's faces, basically, on a regular basis, weekly, at the same time, consistently.
Have you, what I wanted to ask is, have you discovered talent on these post-secondary sites?
I try to do job postings there, but I didn't really get the results I was looking for. Also, I didn't want to pay for the job post. I try to go directly through the schools, but that's because I'm a small operation. I think that there's value in being part of these platforms. Me not looking for candidates there, it shouldn't be the rule.
No, I was going to say that I've discovered talent that I've actually hired through these secondary sites. So the main thing is it's important to have your work everywhere, as many places as you can put it,
and keep consistently show. How would I phrase that? You can't just put your portfolio on Behance and be done with it either. You have to like other people's works. You have to interact. It's the same thing with the Instagram algorithms. Like, the more interactive that you are, the more your stuff is in front of other people's eyes. You have to connect with people. That's how they're going to know you're there.
It's engagement. You have to engage. As much as you want people to engage with your work, it's it's this ecosystem where we all help each other.
Now let's move on to our favorite part of this and every episode, our signature cocktail. Alex, what do you have for us today?
Okay, so you've landed the client, you've got the collaboration. What do? You want to celebrate. You want shots. You want a round of them for you and your friends. What are you going to drink? You're going to drink the hustle shot.
The hustle shot.
Yes.
All right, tell me about the hustle shot. What's in this thing?
In a shaker full of ice, 1 part dark rum, 1 part light rum, half part pineapple juice, half part lime juice, and a dash of bitters. Put your shot glasses out, make sure your friends are ready, pour it out, and cheers. Woo!
And that's a hustle shot.
We're at the end of our podcast. Don't forget to rate us, give us 5 stars, and write a review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps to get in front of more ears and build our audience.
Thank you for hanging with us. For a list of resources mentioned in this episode, hop onto our site, GATSBYFRIDAYS.com.
You can find a recipe for the hustle shot on our website, GATSBYFRIDAYS.com.
For show notes, or if you want to leave a comment, suggest a show topic, get us on our site.
Or on Instagram, follow us at Gatsby Fridays.
Stay with us. On our next episode, we will discuss visual activism. And
this is Gatsby Fridays.
You didn't say and.
Okay, let's do it again.
Stay with us. On our next episode, we will discuss visual activism.
And this is I thought you were going to say and.
Okay,
jeez. Okay.
No and. This is Gatsby Fridays. Okay.
Here we go. I think it's still going,
It's
right?
still going, yeah.
Okay.
Stay with us. On our next episode, we will discuss visual activism.
This is Gatsby Fridays.